Hello and welcome to the second Utopia Restoration podcast. Today I'll be joined by James Ford, or as you may know him as Well Driven and Well Driven Consignments. We have a fantastic chat about our previous car ownerships, getting into the automotive industry, dream car garages, and buying and selling classic cars. Of course, we're always welcome to feedback and we want to know what you guys think and what else you want to hear in our podcasts. So if you're listening on YouTube, drop a comment in the comment section, or if you're listening on any other means such as Spotify, find me on Instagram at utopia_restorations and drop me a message and I'll respond to you. Really looking forward to this one and hope you guys enjoy it. Cheers. So today I'm joined by James Ford, or as some of you guys will know him, Well Driven. Hi James, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm good, thanks. How are you doing? You're right.
Yeah, very well, thank you. So for some of the listeners who don't know, do you want to take us through what Well Driven is and how it all started?
Yeah, sure. So there's kind of two sides to Well Driven. The main and longest lasting side has been the kind of automotive blogging and writing side. It's been going, the site itself, welldrivencars.com, has been going for around 6 years. And in that time, it kind of started off as just previous cars I've owned or family cars or test drives I've got from dealers. And then up until the last few years where it's then been getting involved in much more kind of press orientated activity. So things like press cars from Jaguar Land Rover Group, Rolls-Royce, Porsche, people like that, and attending many events.
Yeah,
And
some good
now
brands.
there's been a lot of fun, to be honest. And now on the side of that, we've now got a consignment business where I list basically private car sales on behalf of private owners, as well as a few advertisements that we do for dealers as well. That's something I'm sure we'll cover a little bit later.
Yeah, you've got some fantastic stock at the moment, but I think, like you say, we'll get onto those in a bit. So for the actual publications, do you remember which was the first car that you started with reviewing?
Yes, I think so. So it all started in a Premier Inn hotel in Bristol.
Very
To
nice.
kind of really go back to where it all happened, I was away with work. I worked for a software company at the time, and I'd been on the road for about 3 weeks on and off, and I was just bored. And I was sat in my hotel room with very little to do, and I just thought, I'm going to start talking about cars again. It's what I do with all my friends. I do it with my family. They're all sick of it, so I'm going to write it all down instead. And maybe one day I'll build up the courage to actually, tell someone about it. And I think at the time I was reviewing my own car, which was a 2007 Mercedes S-Class.
Very nice.
So yes, I think the very first post was basically an introduction to me, a bit of my history and my passion for cars, and then that car. I could be wrong; it could be something else, but I think that was the first car I reviewed.
Or the listeners can always scroll back through your website and find the first one if they want to dig down. But
Yeah.
I do understand that. I get the need to sometimes have a bit of a car outlet because similar to mine, my family's definitely got very bored of me talking about cars. From me being 11, giving them a PowerPoint presentation, and why now is the time to buy a Land Rover Series 3 is they're at rock bottom. And not to say I was right, but I was. I've paid a lot more than I would have done back then. But yeah, so I think that's good to sort of get that outlet and find a way. But then it's definitely interesting how it's developed. And now you've recently had like a Rolls Royce Callaghan, haven't you? Which is
Yeah.
quite a step away from a Mercedes S-Class.
Yeah, so again, it all started off quite kind of behind closed doors. I was writing stuff down. I probably spent about 3 months putting together reviews and pieces on my, at the time, just simple WordPress site before I actually published any of it. And then once it all went live, it took me probably another 3 to 6 months before I had the kind of the courage to tell my friends about it. So I've been doing it kind of all behind everyone's back with that, because I was, it's like you don't want to put yourself out there in front of your mates in case they all turn around and have a go at you. So when I finally got the courage to do it, it's actually really well received, which is quite pleasant. But yeah, so it started off, say, reviewing either my car or a car I just test driven because I managed to blag it with a local dealer, and then now I'm building some really good relationships with main manufacturers. I've had a couple of Rolls-Royce cars now. The first one I did was the Phantom 8 2 years ago. In fact, literally just over 2 years ago. I think about 2 weeks ago I had it, and that for me was a huge achievement because it had gone from, like I said, reviewing friends' cars, used cars, or things like that, up to having this brand new, nearly £500,000 Rolls Royce delivered to my workplace and told, "Here's the keys, have fun."
Yeah,
we'll pick it up again next week. Yeah, that's it. And since then, I've done a bit of more, had some more reviews with them. And then, as you mentioned, last month I had the Rolls-Royce Cullinan Black Badge to review as well, and that was a really, really, really cool experience. And given the 2-year gap between having the Phantom to having the Cullinan, obviously I've learned a bit more about what I need to do to get a good road test and things like that. And it's been really good fun and really interesting.
Does the road test involve off-road testing for the Cullinan?
So with the Rolls Royce, not so much, mainly because when these things get dropped off, they make you sign these huge disclaimers, basically signing your life away if you cause any damage. And as much as I would have loved to have given it the same treatment I've given other 4x4s in the past, there's a little thing in the back of my head going, you've never broken one, but if you would do, it'll be this one. And I just couldn't take the hit. However, we did get some good, some really good time on road. I covered a fair few miles. Fortunately for my business, I had to be on the road quite a bit, which was good. And then if you've seen the review itself, me and Rick of Sprite Photography had a really good day on an airfield getting the shots for it. And that was just an amazing day. Really good fun. Great work from him and just a brilliant day out, to be honest.
Yeah, and if people haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. It's a fantastic shoot of you sat around on planes and in an airfield. But what I was wondering about is how did you guys manage to get access to do it?
So the actual airfield itself is an old US Air Force base over in Suffolk, and it's now actually an industrial estate. And between Rick and myself, we knew some people down there that happened to have their businesses working on that estate. And when we went down, the original plan was to kind of just get on there, take some photos and leave. And then as we spent more time there, we ended up kind of talking to other people there. And the site itself is used a lot for a lot of TV shows and movie filming as well at times, because it's a disused airbase. So it's still got a lot of the stuff there. And there's a company on site that literally their main thing is they buy and sell fighter jets and military helicopters to film companies and private individuals and collectors and all sorts. And we got chatting to them and just said, are we all right to take some pictures around your planes? And they were like, yeah, bring it over. Let's have a laugh and all this stuff. So we started off with just a few tracking shots and ended up parking this Rolls Royce next to some fighter jets, which was, unexpected, but really cool.
Yeah, definitely some very, very cool shoots from it. So going back, you said that before you were in IT. So was Well Driven sort of your first experience of getting into the automotive world, or did you have something before that linked you in?
So professionally, it was the first kind of step into it, but more from personal experience. I've come from a long line of family petrol heads. Mainly my mother, actually. So she's been the one who's kind of pushed me and helped me get to where I am. And just over the years, I've just grown up around cars, playing with cars, looking at all different cars that the family have had or the friends have had. And it was, I've always wanted to get into this kind of industry for a very long time, but obviously, with life being the way it is, you kind of have to take what you can. You can't always get the dream job. So instead, I thought, well, I'll try and create the job instead. So I was running a full-time, like I said, day job for a software company whilst writing about cars in the hope that one day it would all turn around and it would be the thing I do full-time. And so 5 years later, and is what I'm doing now, which is quite nice.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic progression. And definitely sort of, I've done similar with mine, having to sort of realize that maybe there isn't the opportunity for you to go straight into it, but to make it for yourself. And I've been reading the Well Driven reviews and they are fantastic. Particularly, I enjoyed the Range Rover Sport one that you did recently.
Yeah, which is surprising that it's been so well received, just because it's not my favorite Land Rover by a long shot. I'm a big Range Rover fan. I've had two, and the Sport I've always liked the Sport, but it would never be the one I would own. So writing about it was quite interesting because I had to kind of, when I had the car, I had to put all my prejudices about the Sport behind me and just be honest about it. And actually came out with a piece that I'm probably the most happy I've had for a long time out of some of the reviews I've written. And it was a really good one to do as well. We had it when there was snow. It was a really good time of year to test it. And it really proved that it isn't just, some Chelsea tractor that's driven by mums and footballers. It's actually still a very capable, very comfortable and very good car.
Yeah. And white Range Rovers definitely look good in the snow.
Yeah, they need to be dirty. Well, so do all Range Rovers, really. But yeah.
Well, you managed to keep yours very clean, so that's all right.
Well, I've given it its second personal wash and probably the last one I'll ever do because I forgot how big they are and how much of a pain they are to wash. So yeah.
I keep trying to do that on mine, but it just never goes. Between the Land Rover just not being able to be washed without more paint coming off, mainly the underside gets washed more, and then having a white on white wheels. If you have to wash it 1 second and then the next minute it's just absolutely covered in dirt. So
Yeah, it's not a
most
very
dogs can keep clean.
winter-friendly color combination, is it?
No, neither of them can keep clean. But it's all right, it saves time. So you mentioned that your mum got you into cars and was sort of the petrol head that led you into it. So could you tell me more about your car history and then also maybe your family car history?
Yeah, sure. So, like most people, passed my test at 17 and got the cheapest possible car I could get to both buy and insure, and ended up with a 1.1 litre Rover Metro. And
Nice.
then since then, I did write them down earlier, or tried to. I've had, I think, 27 or 28 cars since
Impressive.
passing that all that time ago. Not all great. In fact, the vast majority of them were either heaps or bargain buys or complete disasters. I've had a few vans that I bought at the same time in the pub once. But yeah, so the main kind of key ones, I got quite into Volkswagens in my kind of early 20s and had a VW Corrado, had a Bora, and then I've also had a few Audis as well, like an A4 and an A8 and an
Nice.
A6 all-road as well. But kind of the key ones for me were I've had two Jags. I've had an XJ Sovereign, a 1989, and then a few years ago, I did a complete late night Auto Trader bargain hunt and bought an XJ Sport, the X30. I can't remember what it was now. It was a 1998 3.2 litre V8 XJ Sport for the grand price of £995 with only
Wow.
40,000 miles on it. So I'd snapped that up the next day and spent about 8 months just wafting around in that.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, I've had 5 Land Rovers now. Yeah, two Freelanders, a Discovery, and 2 Range Rovers, and then a few Mercedes as well, an S-Class, a CL500, an E-Class, and a few other bits, and then kind of Volvos, a couple of regular old-fashioned Rovers, and a few other bits in between, really.
Nice. Quite an eclectic mix, but apart from maybe the Jag and the Land Rovers, quite robust cars throughout.
Yeah, I mean, I've always bought with my heart, and I'm quite a bargain hunter. I like to get the most bang for my buck. So if someone goes, for £4,000, you can get this very reliable BMW 3 Series. In my head, I go, yeah, but I can get an S-Class that's got everything in it for the same price, but it'll cost me twice that to run. But I got a new job a few years ago and thought, right, I'm going to be doing lots of mileage now. I better be sensible and buy something practical. So I bought a 2-litre Ford Mondeo Estate, and that was probably the most sensible I've ever been with a car. And it also turned out to be the biggest nightmare. It went wrong so often, and I probably spent 3 times the value of it keeping it on the road in the year I kept it. So I've learnt my lesson, and now I go back to just buying with my heart, and it seems to be doing all right. So.
Funny enough, one of my friends had exactly the same experience with the Mondeo estate. They had it, I think, for about 3 months, and then the engine blew up. So.
Oh God. Yeah, well, it wasn't quite that bad. I had a mishap on a B road, and then I had a new alternator and a few other bits. But yeah, it wasn't as pain free as I'd expected it to be honest. But you live and learn.
I think the phrase "life's too short to drive boring cars" definitely comes into it.
Exactly. It's one of those things where everyone always asks, if you won the lottery or you could have any kind of what you have. And my response is kind of close to, well, all of them really, because there's no one car that would do it for me forever. I'd always want something else.
And like in the previous episode to this, Joe and I talk about what's your achievable dream car garage. So like, say, £100,000 like dream car garage. And it just goes off the rails because you're like, well, I could get a 944 for £7,000. I can then get a Lotus for £13,000. I can then get this. You like sort of end up with 20 or 50 cars. You'd still be under the 100,000, so it counts. But
yeah, there's a lot of MX-5s could be put in that bracket if I wanted. So I always look at it kind of what going back to the 3-car rule. What car would you have if you have 3 cars for £100,000? What would I have? Because then you've got your sensible everyday car that you're probably going to use to go to the shops, take the dog for a walk, do the mundane life bits. There's the weekend fun car, and then you've got the long drive or the special occasion car. That's how I always work it out. So
go on then. What would you have for £100,000 at the moment?
So the everyday one's got to be another Range Rover.
Yeah,
I'd quite happy just have a brand new Range Rover, to be honest. £100,000 job done. But as we discussed before, I've done about over 1,000 miles in mine this week, and it's been wonderful. It's comfy, it's smooth, it's relatively robust. It's not been too bad. I haven't had any issues with it, and it just does everything I need it to do. I've got a dog, so it goes in the back. I lug around a lot of stuff for the house, and it's all there. It's good for work and everything else. So that would be my everyday car. So probably another L322. For that price, probably a late 4.4 V8 diesel one.
nice.
Probably in the same colours though. So I do like navy blue and cream leather, so I'd probably get one of them. The weekend one, that's a bit tough because I'd probably go for a Porsche, like a 996 Carrera 2.
Yeah,
Probably get one of them for around. I think I saw one on Auto Trader recently, and it's a Guards Red 992 Carrera manual with the full GT3 Aero kit for like £20,000, and that would be perfect, I think,
that would
for the
definitely do
weekend
it.
fun one. And then I do a lot of long distance driving. My parents live in the south of Spain, and my partner's family are all over in the west coast of Wales.
Okay.
So I'd need something that we could do a nice long drive in and make an occasion of it. So for that's the one that would break the bank. And for me, it's a Ferrari 612 Scaglietti. At the
Very
moment,
nice.
they're very high up on my list of
I
what
was
I
going to say,
want at the
both
moment.
very hard drives to do, aren't they? Drive to the south of France and drive to Wales. Very nice roads, very easy.
Yeah, you want to be comfortable. You want to be quite secure that you're not going to have any problems. So probably shouldn't get a Ferrari, but you want to enjoy it. And I've done the drives a few times in a variety of cars, and the bigger GT cars have always been the ones I've enjoyed the driving the most. So
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think I'd agree with you on the first one. I think I'd go for an L322 autobiography, or possibly a CLS shooting brake, an
yeah,
AMG. It could be a
yeah,
very good daily, although MPG is probably not the best. For the second one, I have to go with my heart and probably go for a 2014 Mustang or a 67. I know slightly different on price range, but Mustang is definitely up there. And then for the silly weekender, I think either a Morgan three wheeler has quite a
nice.
strong pull for me, or an aerial nomad, just
Yeah,
because they're just silly. You can take it on the track, you can take it off road, you're getting it like a tank. So I think those would be the sort of 3 to 6 that I've mentioned there.
yeah. I do like the Nomad. It's a very interesting car. You have a lot of fun in, definitely.
And I saw it at Goodwood Festival of Speed when it launched, and it's just silly, and you can see the flywheel spinning up, and just in comparison to the other stuff that's there. And I like it how like the side panels are optional. You don't necessarily have to have those. You could have side like stones flowing in. Yeah, just an all-round silly car.
I think the thing I love about the aerials, and the same thing I love about Caterhams and Morgans, is the fact that with so many nearly every new car that comes out, they're full of tech and they're full of screens, and they've taken away buttons and they've taken away any kind of proper, what I consider kind of build quality in that respect. And I always worry that you think these are great now. What are they going to be like in 10 years, 20 years time? And with cars like Caterhams and aerials and stuff like that, what you see is what you see is what you get. There's nothing hidden in them. There's no fancy sat navs that are going to blow up in 6 months' time and cost thousands of pounds to fix. It's good old fashioned engineering, mechanics, and everything else. And it's amazing that we still have cars like that built today.
Yeah,
Where you'd think in the world we are, where everything has to be high tech and everything else, they'd be phased out and wouldn't exist anymore. So it's so cool. There's companies that are still building them.
yeah, 100%. And I think like sort of 2014 was sort of when the mass market sort of ended on that, where you could then get Bogo cars that were Bogo, and everything got all this AirPlay and stuff like that in it, and became essentially more like the iPhone method, where you're now upgrading for the new bit of technology rather than the car itself. And even mine,
Exactly.
so my Fiesta's 2014, pretty easy to work on, but even still, there's loads of things where you get to, and it's like this hasn't been thought out for mechanics. This isn't meant to be able to do this. Like even changing spark plugs is just awkward. Trying to put fog light, we're trying to put rally lights through the grommets is quite hard. Surprisingly, Ford don't expect you to do that. But then you go back to older cars like Land Rovers, and it's just easy. It's just much straightforward. But speaking about your Range Rover, sort of how have you found the maintenance on that? I've seen that you've been doing a few bits of work and things to it.
It's been, like I said, I've only had it 2 months now, and it's been a pleasure, to be honest. There's a few small little niggles that I do need to sort out, and I will do over time, but there's nothing pressing. So before the L322, I had a P38 Range Rover for just over a year, and when I bought it, the first thing I thought as I was driving it back from my friend's house was, "What have I just done? Like, this is going to absolutely ruin me." My parents had one of these back in the day, and I remember it was always broken. It always had things done to it. Everyone I've spoken to over the years, because everyone knows I've wanted one, has always said, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it." So I kind of waited until I was in a position where I thought, well, if I do it, if it does go wrong, I've got a bit more knowledge now. I've got a good toolkit. Worst case scenario, I've got a good Land Rover specialist down the road from me, and surprisingly, it only had a few very small issues. The UJs went at one point and had to be replaced, and again, it's a £10 part plus a few hours labour, and then it had some issues with the track rod ends and bits during the MOT. And other than that, and a slight battery drain. It was a great car. But when this one came up for sale, I know the owner, I know the history of the car. It's one that when I saw it, I said, I really want yours because it's a fully original early L322. It's the TD6. It's had the gearbox work done to it, so it should be relatively stress-free for me. And so far, so good. I'm fully aware that at some point it will do something to annoy me, probably at the least convenient time, middle of the night, other end of the country type thing. But
Definitely.
It's part of the story, isn't it? We don't buy things. If we all wanted everything to be effortless, we'd all drive Skoda Octavias.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
they're great cars and brilliant for what they do. But for me, I always want to have something that I really cherish, and I love it. So.
And your previous Range Rover, I have to say, was probably the best spec that I've ever seen of one of those. It just looked absolutely fantastic. When you put it up for sale, there was a very strong temptation. But I've got two at the moment. I don't need a third.
Well, I must admit, I can't take any credit for that. Unfortunately, I bought it pretty much as it came. But again, so the story of the L322 is the mechanic who does some work for us had it. I'd said to him, when you sell it, let me know because I really want to buy it. The P38 is an almost identical story with a different friend. So Rick of Sprite Photography, who does a lot of the well-driven photography, was his car. It was his off-road toy. And the first time I met him, I went to his house and it was on his driveway. I said, I really want one of these. If you ever decide to sell, let me know. And then about a year later, I got a text saying, I think you're selling the P38, just so you know. And then 3 days later, I'm at his door with the cash, like, give it to me now type thing. So I need more friends that don't have nice cars, really, because otherwise I'll just keep buying them all.
I was going to say, who have you said it to next? What's the next car that's being lined up that you said you'd buy?
No one yet, unfortunately. But I do have some friends with some very interesting cars, but they're all a little bit out of my price range at the moment. But who knows what the future holds?
Well, speaking of expensive price ranges, you have some amazing cars on your consignments on at the moment. I've just seen the new E-Type that's gone up, the Mark 1, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, so the consignment business is going really well. It's been a really, really interesting and really exciting journey. I partnered up with someone I've known for a few years who works in the motor industry, and our initial goal was to kind of just get a few cars on and build it up and go from there. And then since October, really, we've just met so many amazing restoration places, dealers, private owners who have just really welcomed our business model in, and they really like the way we do it. So without meaning to, we've built up this huge consignment list. I think I've listed the 92nd car this morning for the site. And I think we've currently got 51 or so still for sale, and the rest are all sold. The E-Types are a great story. So we listed a Series 2 fixed head coupe about 3 weeks ago. And it had a full restoration and a few kind of resto mods done to it. So power steering, better brakes, fuel injection, a few other bits. And it sold within a week. Wow. And so when the car sold, the restoration company that actually built the car rang us and said, can't believe you sold this car already. We've been advertising it for a year and no one's bought it. So this is amazing. We've got 4 more. Can you come up and have a look? So I jumped in the car and I took Rick with me. I thought, if we're going to do this, we're going to get some really good photos. So I took Rick from up to Burton-on-Trent. It's a place called Gibson Classics. And all they do is restore E-Types, nothing else. Very simple, but the work they do is like nothing I've ever seen before, to be honest. So they basically get customers who you can have just the roof of an E-Type, and they'll go on and build a whole car around this. I want it to be exactly what I want it to be. So you get a combination of cars that are restored back to the original factory spec, minus maybe a power fan or something along those lines, right up to someone wanting a full new dashboard with infotainment system, power steering, electric central locking, all this kind of stuff. And they'll do anything, but the level of craftsmanship they do for it is incredible. So we've just listed the 4 cars now. We've got 2 Series 3 V12 drop heads, a Series 2 fixed head coupe that's had so much work done to it. I think it's around 260 brake. It's got power brakes. It's got fuel injection, and then inside it's got this mad custom interior. So it's got like a doubled-in infotainment system with CarPlay and custom-made knobs and dials and everything. Like inside, you wouldn't know it was an E-Type, but on the outside, it's still that beautiful shape. And then we have this absolutely gorgeous was a California car, Series 1 convertible that we just listed. And it looks like a brand new car. Everything in it is new. The interior is new. The body's new. The engine bay, you could eat your dinner off. And it's just, it's a really, really lovely car.
Well, that's amazing. And they definitely sound like the right company, because I think cars like those need that level of attention and detail, where they are so prestigious and they are that fantastic history, that you need someone that is all they are focused on, is an E-Type.
That's it. And they say a lot of the times when the cars change hands, when they need to be serviced or anything done, they always go back to the same place. So they're not then going off to a different company, which I think speaks volumes for the level of their work and their professionalism as well. They get their return business either with new owners, and they've got cars that maybe is the third or fourth E-Type they built for an individual and things. It's an amazing place to go to, and they're really, really nice people as well, which is always good. So
yeah, that's what you need. So apart from the E-Types, which one out of all the consignments you have at the moment would you take for a drive?
Well, being a kind of a almost journalist, I take them all out for a drive.
Which one would you have? Which would you buy?
I don't know. We've actually, I was down at Goodwood yesterday with a client who's got a huge collection of classic cars, and then we're currently listing, I think, 5 of them for him in the next couple of weeks. And there's one in particular in that I really, really fell in love with. I can't give too much away though because it's not on the site yet. But we have a few others. There's a car that I've loved most of my life that we're selling. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily in the color scheme I would have it in, but it's the bright yellow Bentley Azure we have.
Oh yes.
So it's it's a one of one kind of canary yellow Bentley Azure with a black leather interior and walnut dash, and it's everything about it apart from the yellow is perfect.
Yeah. Well, you'd certainly make a statement, wouldn't you?
That's very true. Yes.
And if it's yellow, you could have a little bit of Utopia Restoration branding on it. And it fit
there you go. Yeah. So it could be a little advert. Probably buy it as a business expense in that respect. You know?
Write it off. It'll be all right.
Yeah.
Got a Porsche Boxster on at the moment in green. And I may be me being naive, but I don't think I've seen one like that for sale before, because it is a fantastic color.
Yeah, it's rainforest green metallic, which is a very rare color, especially for Boxsters. There's not many of them around. I think I've seen maybe 1 or 2 over the years, but I've never seen one for sale. And this one, it's got, it's one of those things where a lot of people are scared by high mileage cars, and really you need not be. I'm not just saying that because I'm selling it. I'm saying that's how I buy cars. I look at them and go, have they got, what's the mileage? Well, I don't really care. What's the history? And this car, so it's a Boxster S. It's a very early one, so it's 3.2. And it's got about 140,000 miles on it, but it's got every single piece of history with it, every receipt, every invoice, the lot. So I'd feel far more comfortable buying that than I would on the half the miles and less history. But the color itself is great. It looks fantastic, and it's a really, really lovely color in the sunshine as well, which is good for a 2-seater convertible. I think it's perfect summer car.
I think some gold bronzy wheels would just finish it off.
Yeah, it would look very nice actually. Yeah, so I'm surprised it hasn't got a tan interior. There's quite a few of those kind of things going around, but I do quite like the black as well. So,
have you been hanging around to make green great again? Seeing all the green and tan.
I have. I do feel that it's not been overdone as such yet, because there's still lots out there. But it is, yeah. Whenever I go on the configurators of various car websites, I'll probably make a blue one. I'll make a green one. If it's green, it's got to have a tan interior. But yeah, there's definitely one of the go-tos whenever I configure stuff online when I'm bored. So
yeah, I think. Well, I don't know. I've just fallen in love with green cars at the moment. I think whenever I've been looking and always surfing, I keep sending cars to my girlfriend like, we should get this one, we should get that one, and they just all seem to be green. So I think it's going to end up with 5 or 6 green cars on the drive. maybe some purples creeped in, but seemingly just greens dominating at the moment.
I went through a phase of having lots of silver cars, and all my mates said it was far too boring. So I've had a couple of bright yellow ones, and now I've just settled for navy blue and cream. So
navy blue's a good spec. So in your career, what would you say is one of your most memorable standout moments?
It's a tough one because so much has happened, especially in the last few years. I think having the first Rolls Royce was probably one of the biggest ones for me, because it was. I took that as kind of real acknowledgement from them that they'd read the site, they'd read the work that I've done. I'd met with them in person as well, had a really good conversation with them, and I think that really helped as well, because it kind of helped force some kind of relationship with them in that respect, a more personal one. So yeah, when they finally kind of agreed and the car was delivered, that was a really kind of big point for me, because it meant that the site is getting it's getting the kind of recognition that I wanted it to get from the right people. And then obviously getting a second one was even better, because it meant that they were still happy and they didn't go, we've given him this car, he's had a complete joyride, we're never doing it again. Yeah, and I mean, winning an award a couple of years ago was really good. It was something I didn't expect. I just kind of put it forward as something to do at the time. And then the actual truth of it was I'd completely forgotten about it. And I got a message from someone on Instagram who'd also entered into it and was shortlisted, saying, "Oh, you watching the finals?" And I was out walking my dog, like I have no idea what you're talking about. And then literally 10 minutes later, found out I won it. So that was really good. Other than that, I guess just being able to do this every day and have a lot of fun with it, and days like yesterday where I was in a field full of classic cars, just driving them around, having a look at them, photographing them, writing about them was great. Last week I was at Goodwood on the motor circuit, driving. Took a Wraith Black Badge around the circuit. Not necessarily your typical track car, but I had an absolute blast doing it. And just all these things that have happened and come up from it have been really, really amazing. And so I never thought I'd be able to do 10 years ago when I was working in an office wearing a suit every day.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I think especially taking the Wraith around the track, and not to be underestimated, I've seen the Black Series at Foss doing burnouts pretty much the whole way up the hill climb. So although it may be slightly different to the Porsche you took round, it's they'll still move on a track, won't they?
Yeah, it's very strange going that fast around a track and it being so serene. They've definitely done something magical there. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big Rolls Royce fan anyway, so it was nice to have a bit of fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's your future plans for Well Driven and Well Driven Consignments?
I guess the main thing is growing the consignment business as much as we can to a point where we're happy with it. The consignment side is my day job now, to be honest. Well Driven as a kind of a publication is still a hobby. It's great fun, and I have a lot of fun doing it, but it's not, that's not keeping a roof over my head or keeping my partner and my dog fed and everything. Whereas the consignment business is, and it's the plan for that is to grow it nice and organically and get to a point where, I can employ people and have people working and paid on there as well. We've got some really interesting stuff hopefully coming up in the next couple of months. We're planning a big summer with it, and hopefully it'll all go to plan. But yeah, and also just to keep writing. I never want to not have the time to do that. I never want to not have time just to blabber on about cars to people on the internet that don't know me.
And you're good at it, so you must keep it up.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate that. It's just something I've always talked about cars, and I've weirdly never really had, like, most of my friends were never really that into it. So I'd talk about it and they'd be like, "Oh, cool, yeah. Anyway, I've got a red one," and that would be as far as their knowledge kind of went. And I do have some really good friends I've made in the last few years around cars, but it's just nice to have, like you said, have an outlet where I can do it and I'm not boring someone to death. My poor girlfriend, she now knows far too much about cars than she'll ever happily admit. And it's all because I've just sat here day in, day out for 10 years with her now, telling her what I'm buying or what I'm driving or what I want to drive. And it's just, yeah, it's something I never want to get bored of it.
Yeah, definitely. It's a fantastic community to be part of. And I think like that, if it is your passion, you are going to be involved, you are going to put in the hours, and you are going to grow it. So with the consignments growing, do you think that sort of has been affected with the pandemic, as in the movement away from dealerships? Or do you plan to open a dealership, or are you always planning to stay virtual?
So it's been a very interesting learning curve for me, because I don't really have that much experience in the kind of the selling and trading world. My partner, Spencer, he has a very good understanding and knowledge of it. And he's the one that kind of approached me and said, let's do something different. Let's change how people buy and sell their cars, because, and this was in October. So we were still in the first lockdown, or we'd just come out of first lockdown last year.
Who knows?
Something. All I know is that I still hadn't had my hair cut and I was still living in, gym shorts and a t-shirt. And it's right. The problem we've got with the car market at the moment is that new car sales are struggling anyway. But a lot of people don't like buying cars now. And I use my personal experience with my girlfriend and her buying a new car as an example. She will just want a car that goes from A to B, and she might have one that she likes the look of. But when she goes into a car dealer, she's instantly hounded by salespeople telling her what she thinks she needs and what they think she wants. So then I have to step in and go, that's not what she wants. That's not what she needs. Literally, this is the one she wants. We're buying it. And that's that. And there's a lot of pressure, I think, in that world, and it puts people off. And selling it's the same way around. People just don't really like having to do it. But at the same time, if you take it to a car dealer and say, I want to buy this brand new car, here's my car, you're going to get the lowest price possible because that's the way it works. So what we wanted to do was create a way that you can buy cars easier.
Yeah.
But also it's more, our service is really more about the selling, and it's taking away the strain and the pressure and the headache of having to sell your own car. It's, because there's people out there who love doing it and people out there who love selling their cars and love writing about them, putting ads together and all that. And that's great. But there's a lot of people out there who just want to get rid of the car. They don't want to get ripped off. They don't want to be pressured into it. They don't want to be, kind of taken for a ride on the price. They just want to sell their car, but they haven't got time, or they haven't got the energy, or they just don't want to do it. So what we offer is just a service that takes all that away from them, where, if they're not too far away or they're happy, we can send a photographer up, we can take photos of it. We manage the whole sale pretty much until we've got that person ready with the cash in their pocket or whatever to buy that car. And then it's a simple transaction of they turn up, take the keys, here's your money, job done. And that kind of service, I think, there's definitely a larger demand for it than I first anticipated. But also, like I said, the market is, the way we buy and sell cars is definitely changing. There's a huge rise in auction sites in the last 6 months as well.
Yeah.
I think that's also leading a big way. And it's just been really interesting, to be honest, to find out all about this firsthand and really experience what it's like. Because it's, we haven't got cars flying out the doors yet. There is still definitely a lot of concern and worry in the world right now with regards to spending, especially on the more expensive cars that we have. But at the same time, we through no fault of our own kind of started specializing in more classic stuff, and the average classic car owner tends to be of an older age, and the odds are they're probably retired now anyway. So things like the concerns about losing your job during a pandemic, therefore I'm not going to buy a new car, don't really exist because they've already finished work. So they've just, their money's worth what their money was worth a year ago, which is good because it means they're still happy to buy the car they want. But also it means the odds are there's more cars available for them as well, so they can be a bit picky. So it's been really interesting, but really good. And I do think it is the start of a big change moving forward. I think, like you say, showrooms will become smaller and there'll be fewer of them. And I think more stuff will be done online. So we try and keep it as kind of low cost as possible, because then we can pass that on to our clients. The minute we start investing in property and having a dealer and having to have, cars on site and extra security and insurance and things like that, is when our costs go up. And unfortunately, the effect will be we'll have to raise our fees as well, which we don't want to do. So our plan is to try and keep it as virtual and as clean as possible, really.
Yeah. And it certainly is. It's a fantastic platform. And I think it's an interesting change in the last year, because you've got the good clientele of the retired. But of course, you no longer need your silver Mercedes C-Class to get to the office and back, do you? Because now every journey is actually a journey, apart from maybe dropping off the kids. But I've definitely seen a rise of more people getting classic or interesting cars, because you just don't need that sort of boring daily. From the other side of one of my friends selling, who will remain anonymous, sold them, put their Mini online, paid £60 for an Auto Trader ads, wrote all the text for it, and it sold within about an hour. So 30 minutes in, somebody phoned, they drove over, they took the Mini and gave them the cash. They didn't even test drive it, just took it and left. And he was like, this is fantastic. This is the best sale I've ever had. And then I think it must have been about 6 months later to the day, they then said, it's failed its MOT. And he was like, okay, well, that's got nothing to do with me. And then they were claiming, well, the brake pads were worn, that he missold it. And this went on for about 3 or 4 weeks. Of the people that just brought it, didn't test drive it, just turned up and took it, were then going on for 3 weeks saying they were going to sue, they're going to take legal action, and sort of all this hassle, when it was just the most hassle-free sale. And I think that's probably sort of tainted or changed it. But if there's people like you guys where you can advertise and prove how amazing the car is and take that hassle away, it's a fantastic service to have.
And that's exactly the point. We've all had horror stories of buying cars, and I think there's definitely people out there. I mean, I do really feel for your friend having that issue, especially after such a time period when, private car sales are exactly that, and you can't really come back 6 months later and say it's broken, because who knows what's been done in the meantime. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Especially
kind of
going brake pads.
Yeah.
6 months of brake pads, they're not going to be the same.
That's it. They're perishable products, and that's exactly what they are. And I think unfortunately, there's always going to be people out there who will do these kinds of things. It's inevitable, whether you're a dealer or a private seller. There's always people out there who, just for some reason, for their own, I don't know, they either want to complain or they think the world owes them something, and it's frustrating and it's difficult. And I guess the key is just to kind of get through it and crack on with the next bit, really. But going back to your point about commuting and stuff like that, we've definitely seen a rise in that as well, and it's a really interesting point. We've got kind of people at companies going, I've been sat at home for 12 months now. I've always wanted this. My 5 Series has had no attention. I don't need a diesel. I'm buying it now. And it's been really interesting that all of a sudden all these people are going out there and buying their childhood dream cars and stuff like that. And I think that's amazing. I think it's really cool because it means that all the cars we've not seen on the road for a very long time, if you go on the M25 on a Wednesday afternoon, it's just a sea of grey, silver and white company cars. Yeah. And all of a sudden, this summer, there's going to be an influx of classic cars, supercars, sports cars, you name it. They'll all be back on the road again. I think that's amazing. There's going to be some colour and some variety back out there, which is really cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm guilty of that. In May, I got my Series 3, which again, wanted since I was 11. And it did get to the point of, I planned to do this after I graduated. I didn't actually I technically graduated, but never actually had a graduation. So I was like, I can't do it at that point. I'll just do it now. And yeah, I haven't regretted it. So
yeah, that's really cool as well. Like it's a really cool car, and I hope it gives you a lot of satisfaction and some good adventures with it too.
Yeah, it needs a bit more work doing to it. It's been neglected because other work has to take priority. But hopefully this summer, fingers crossed, new Exmoor trim seats. It's getting the full plush interior. So it's going to look really cool on the interior and then still look like a military truck on the outside. So hopefully that should be ready for the summer for some camping and some things like that.
Cool. I mean, and to be honest, you'll probably never be 100% with it anyway, but that's a good thing because that's the whole point. Is that's the joy of doing it. You'll always be changing this bit and that, and there'll always be the odd bit that goes wrong that will keep you working on it. But that's where the passion is, isn't it? And that's where the enjoyment of doing it is.
Oh, definitely. And like it's just done. Got it back from the workshop after getting a new master and slave cylinders, and then the heater exchange starts leaking. So you can't win. It's like day after it's left, just starts up because you fix one thing and another thing will break. But that's the whole fun of them, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely.
So I think we'll start to wrap up. Is there anything else that you want to talk about?
No, not really. I mean, I guess the main thing is, like I said, with well-driven consignments, the goal here is to kind of just make selling your car a more hassle-free and stress-free environment. Because we don't have a fancy showroom with lots of flash cars in it, we have very low overheads, which means our prices are reflective of that. We have fixed fees and for all of that. And if anyone's interested, please do get in touch because we'd be more than happy to market the vehicle.
And where can everyone find you? So it's Well-Driven Consignments on Instagram, also Well-Driven, and the website is?
It's the website's welldrivencars.com, and then everything's on there from the publication side right through to the consignment side as well.
And definitely go check out the stock because you do have some amazing things on there, James.
Thank you very much. It's going up daily at the moment as well, so there's always interesting and new stuff going on there. So hopefully it'll get someone's attention.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you. I really appreciate this. It's been really good fun. Thanks.
Cheers. So that's the end of this week's podcast. Thank you for making it this far. Next week, we will be joined by Charles Foreman from Explore More, learning about overlanding in his family before it was a hashtag. Make sure you check out our website to see what new stock we've got on and what projects are currently up for sale. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you all next week.